Hurricane Melissa has been gaining in strength as it slowly approaches the island of Jamaica. The most powerful storm in the country's history is expected to make landfall in the coming hours. Thousands have been ordered to evacuate their homes and go to emergency shelters. The Red Cross is warning that 1.5 million people there could be impacted, more than half of the country's population. With winds up to almost 300 kilometres an hour, Melissa is expected to bring catastrophic flooding and landslides as it moves north across the island. Jamaica's government says it has done all it can to prepare. Let's go to Jamaica's capital, where we find Natricia Duncan, who's Caribbean correspondent for the Guardian newspaper. Welcome to DW, Natricia. What's it like there as the island waits?
Well, I believe that actually the hurricane is just about to make landfall. It has been a long, unnerving wait. And as you could imagine, the tensions, the terror is building as these really terrifying updates are coming in hard and fast. Last night, it was challenging. Lots of songs, winds, rain. It was difficult for me personally to sleep because of those songs and the concerns about my safety and you know my accommodation being compromised. And of course, across the island, we had situations where there was already flooding in the morning. We saw some really heavy flooding in some areas. We saw trees being blown down. Currently, you know, hundreds of thousands of people are without power. I have also lost power in Kingston, but my building has a backup generator. So before it even landed, we were seeing some of those worst case scenarios that were being predicted, which is quite worrying.
And you haven't sought shelter. Is that because you are much further inland?
Yes, so where I'm currently based in Kingston. I am in a fairly good position because one, the storm is quite a distance away from me. It's going diagonally through Jamaica, but I'm still, Kingston has been spared the worst of what will happen. With the worst affected areas we're talking about are places like St. Elizabeth, which is quite worrying because just last year during the summer, during Hurricane Beryl, this was one of the areas that was most, you know, devastated and most, you know, had really bore the brunt of Hurricane Beryl. And we had people in that area who were just rebuilding. People are telling us, we just finished our fixing our house. We're just now coming to terms with the trauma of Beryl, and now we have Melissa bearing down on us and
right,
you know, hitting us in the possible way.
And as you say, so it seems to be one thing after another, and I'm reading that officials are concerned that not enough people have sought shelter. And you can sort of understand if they're sort of being battered from one disaster to the next, why people might just say, no, I've had enough, I'm stopping here. What are you hearing about why people are so reluctant?
So we spoke to people in Port Royal, which is one of the most vulnerable communities, exposed. In fact, it used to be a massive Caribbean city, and until there was an earthquake in the 1600s, which completely devastated it and sunk most of it. And now it's just a small fishing village. And people there were saying, we have experience with hurricanes. We've been through Gilbert, we've been through Beryl, we know what to do, we can take care of ourselves. And they were also saying when we go to shelters, and you know, in the past we have had problems with our belongings being stolen, we've had problems with women being at risk, and so they're saying that we feel confident and that the best thing to do is to stay put. But this is unprecedented, this is a dangerous storm, and so you know, the government then had to enforce mandatory evacuation in order to get those people to safety.
All right. Thank you so much for talking us through that, Natricia. Do stay safe. Natricia Duncan in Kingston, Jamaica.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
US meteorologist Matthew Cappucci has been tracking Hurricane Melissa. He's currently in Florida. We asked him how hard the storm is expected to hit Jamaica.
Incredibly hard. You know, the only comparable high-end hurricane that the Jamaican area has really seen in the past was back in 1988 when Gilbert made landfall as a high-end Category 3. And that caused 49 deaths and upwards of 100,000 homes were damaged or destroyed. That was a high-end Cat 3. This is a Cat 5, an order of magnitude more significant. You know, the scale isn't linear, it's exponential, so this is incredibly strong. They'll see up to a meter of heavy rainfall in the higher elevations, causing flooding, landslide, mudslides, isolating some communities. There could be a 3 to 4+ meter storm surge, water piled against the coastline, inundating perhaps second-floor buildings. And most of all, that buzzsaw of winds, the eye wall, that innermost ring of extreme winds near the hurricane's eye, could contain gusts over 240 kilometers per hour at the shoreline. Melissa is meteorological perfection in the worst way you can possibly imagine. To get a high-end hurricane like this, you need 4 different ingredients. Number 1, incredibly warm ocean waters. That is the fuel, the elixir of life for storms like this. Water temperatures right now are ranging between like 32, 33 degrees Celsius, which is high-octane fuel, oceanic heat content for these hurricanes to sap energy from. Number 2, you need a lack of wind shear or disruptive changing winds with height. The winds aloft are weak, so there's nothing to really knock Melissa off kilter. Number 3, you can't have any dry air around. If there's any dry air, it gets entrained into the circulation and erodes the storm from the inside out. But everywhere there's humidity, so that's not a factor either. And lastly, you need divergence or spreading of the air aloft. The more we fan away the exhaust at the upper levels, the more warmth and moisture we can suck in from below, and the more the storm strengthens. All those things have overlapped perfectly. The odds of that happening are so slim, but they've overlapped perfectly to cause hell on earth in the form of this incredibly powerful storm, the strongest of 2025 worldwide.
All right, for more on this, we can bring in Friederike Otto, a professor in climate science at the Centre for Environmental Policy in London. Welcome to DW. Thank you for joining us today. You lead the World Weather Attribution. That's an international effort that analyses the possible influence of climate change on extreme weather events. So, given what we're seeing here, to what extent is climate change having an effect on hurricanes like Melissa?
So the strongest effect that climate change has on hurricanes like Melissa is through the warming of the oceans. So Melissa is so strong because of the very, very high temperatures that we have in the Gulf of Mexico at the moment. And these temperatures would be a lot lower if it wasn't for human-induced climate change. And we have seen that with every single storm in the North Atlantic that we've studied with World Weather Attribution, that all these storms have become more intense because of human-induced climate change. So more intense rainfall and more intense wind speeds.
So scientists, there's obviously always a lot of discussion, isn't there, about what affects these hurricanes, what makes them stronger, why they're happening. So you're saying that scientists can be absolutely confident that a storm's strength and its path is affected by global warming?
So the intensity of the storms is definitely affected by global warming. We of course have to study Melissa, so then we can say by how much, but all storms in the tropical Atlantic have become so when a storm has developed, it is more intense than it would have been because of climate change, and that's mainly because of the higher ocean temperatures that we see. So we don't see more storms overall, but the storms that we see are likely to get more intense, and therefore we see particularly an increase in the most intense hurricanes, so Category 3, 4, and 5.
And what about the locations of hurricanes, the paths that they're taking? Are we seeing changes in where they're happening and where they're going because of climate change?
So what we see is, because one of the key ingredients are very high ocean temperatures, we only see tropical cyclones in the tropics. But of course, because the oceans are getting warmer everywhere, the area where they can develop and where the ocean temperatures get high enough increases. So we see hurricanes developing further north and further south than we have historically seen. And there are also some studies that suggest that the stalling of the hurricanes, so this very slow movement that we see with Melissa and that we've also seen a few years ago with Hurricane Harvey that hit Texas very hard, that is becoming more likely with climate change.
So you're saying that these superstorms are going to become more dangerous and more frequent. What does that mean for regions like the Caribbean in the coming years? I mean, what are they doing to protect themselves?
So yes, we will see more intense hurricanes, particularly in the North Atlantic. There we have very, very strong evidence of that. And that means that communities in the Caribbean need to be well prepared. So there needs to be early warning systems that are combined with early action. So when there is a warning, that people know what to do. They have places to evacuate to. And of course, it also means that the communities need to be built to withstand hurricanes. So even if we would stop burning fossil fuels today, we already have this increase in more intense hurricanes. So adaptation is really essential. And of course, a lot of communities in the Caribbean are poor. So financing adaptation measures is really crucial and something that will also hopefully be discussed and get more emphasis at the upcoming COP in Brazil in November.
Friederike Otto from the Centre for Environmental Policy in London. Friederike, thank you so much.
Thank you.